Hello book lovers, and welcome back to Nat Cat's Bookish Cafe. Today I will be doing a video where if you liked this book, I will suggest this book. So these videos where you talk about one book that a lot of people may like, usually the more popular one, and then a less popular book, is a type of video that I really enjoy watching. And I have come up with 5 pairings at this point, so I figured I would go through those 5 today. Of course, you can flip-flop, so if you read this one, you can read that one, whatever you want. I'm gonna go ahead and explain the books and why I think that they are similar and why you would enjoy the other if you enjoyed the first one. So the first book that I want to talk about is one of my all-time favorite books, and that is I Wish You All the Best by Mason Deaver. This follows our non-binary main character. Their name is Ben, and they recently came out to their parents as being non-binary, and they kicked them out of the house because they're terrible parents. So he goes and calls his sister, who he has not been in touch with for quite a while. I think once she turned like 18 or something, she dipped. I'm assuming it wasn't the greatest household to grow up with, so it seems that she kind of escaped when she could. So they reach out to her to see if they can stay with her for a while, because they obviously don't have anywhere to live now. Because they have moved in with their sister, they will also be starting at a new school. So here at the new school, they make friends with this character right here. When they go to the school, they go by he, him pronouns. They don't say that they are non-binary. This is really, unfortunate for them. It's painful for them, but they want to be accepted. They've had a really bad experience with coming out. So they go by the male pronouns, even though they don't identify as male. And eventually they start to have feelings for this character and of course want to be their true selves around them. And it's just about them accepting themselves and finding the strength to come out to someone that they really care about and don't want to lose. So the next book is a book that I read on Kindle. This book is called Peter Darling. This book is by Austen Chant, and it follows who we in the regular Peter Pan story know as Peter/Wendy. So in the normal world, they are Wendy, but they identify as a boy, and because they cannot present themselves as a boy in their regular world, they escape to Neverland, where they can be a boy as Peter Pan. In the beginning of the story, we show Peter returning to Neverland, and things are a little bit different. The Wild Boys, is that what they're called? Lost Boys. They're Lost Boys. Are under another leadership of more of a pacifist, while Peter is definitely more into violence and killing the pirates and things like this. He also gets in contact with Hook, and there's a relationship between the two of them. I would consider this, I think it's still YA, so it's not like a like a strong romance. They're still youngish, probably like in their late teens, early 20s. But it does follow their relationship as Neverland starts to become more of like a prison than like a sanctuary. So the reason I would suggest that you read either one of them if you like the other, is because we are dealing with trans and non-binary characters in both of them who have had to run away from home because their true selves are not accepted in those environments. So we're dealing with characters who are trying to find a place where they are loved and accepted for who they are. They are struggling with this a lot. Ben is going by male pronouns, even though they don't feel comfortable with that. And Peter is not admitting that in another world they have the body of a female. So they are keeping secrets from those around them in hopes of living a more comfortable life. In the end, these both have happy endings. Our characters find people who love and accept them exactly as they are, and they feel a lot of comfort, really comfortable in their own bodies and in their own identities, and we get to see their journey to reaching that place. So the next book I want to talk about is a YA book that was relatively popular, and that is Sadie and Sadie. We follow 2 points of view. We follow Sadie herself as she runs away from home in hopes of finding the man that she believed killed her younger sister. We also follow the point of view of a podcaster who visits the aunt, or maybe she was just a friend, of Sadie, to try and get the story behind the disappearance of these 2 sisters. This book deals with some pretty heavy topics, specifically pedophilia and sexual assault of a minor. Sadie was unfortunately molested by one of her mother's boyfriends, and he had threatened to move on to her younger sister if she did not give him what he wanted. And so when her sister ended up dead, she decided that he was the one who had killed her. So she sets out on this journey, and we watch her as she tries to follow, the breadcrumbs to find out where he is. So this book has trigger warnings. Obviously it is a YA book, but the topic is, still, a darker theme. If you liked Sadie and are looking maybe for the adult version of this, I would suggest The Night Swim. So The Night Swim is by Megan Golden, and I forgot to mention, but Sadie is written by Courtney Summers. Now The Night Swim is adult and it deals with similar topics, so if it was kind of rough to read Sadie, I probably would suggest not moving on to this because it's just gonna get darker. And this one we also follow 2 points of view. We follow a podcaster who has come to a small town to report live on a rape trial that is occurring at that time, and we also follow the point of view of the younger version of a woman who has approached the podcaster in the present day. So in the present day, this woman has approached the podcaster and informed her that she would like her sister's story to be shared because a lot of people saw her sister as a slut who had unfortunately died at some point. But we flash back and we see that that was not the case of what happened. Her death does involve rape, and there is a little bit of on-page sexual assault or rape that occurs. It's not overly explicit, but it is there, so just something to keep in mind. So the podcaster is, of course, facing this town where you can see in both the past and the present, the victims, these young women minors, are being slut shamed and are being kind of not seen as the victims that they are with these sexual assault cases. In both cases, the men involved are more important. And I believe, especially in the past, the girl who was sexually assaulted was poor. So it discusses those issues of victim blaming. There is, of course, also the trial that occurs, which is really interesting, but also really disturbing. So excellent novels. Both of them, as you can tell, deal with similar themes. Both of them follow both a young girl who is trying to uncover the truth, and the podcasters who are trying to assist them in doing so. As for the girls that are sharing this information, both of them are the sisters of the sexual assault victims. So we get to see the stories through the eyes of young women who know that their siblings have been raped and have been murdered. So those are also similar themes. Once again, please check trigger warnings before getting into these books. Even the descriptions of them are incredibly difficult to hear, so I apologize. I will probably put like a little trigger warning before I do this video, which you would have already seen if you're at this point now. But yeah, both excellent. I listened to them both in audiobook, and I highly suggest that you do the same. All right, up next we are going to take a look at Ace of Spades, another one of my all-time favorite books. In this book we follow Chiamaka and Devon as they go through their senior year at a private high school. They are the only two Black students at this school. Chiamaka is from a wealthy family, while Devon is from the other side of the tracks and is a scholarship student. He is very quiet. He really enjoys music and is hoping to go to music school someday. And Chiamaka is more outgoing. She wants to be the class president, and I believe she wants to be a doctor. So at the beginning of this book, I believe they both get elected to be like class president, or, you know, students who have more power within the school, which is what she wanted, and he's very surprised that this happened. But eventually we start to see that there's someone with the initial of ACES that is sending out text to the whole school, kind of uncovering some darker secrets that these two students have. So this book is described as Get Out meets Ace. This is Ace of Spades. Get Out meets Gossip Girl. And that perfectly describes this book. We see as things start to escalate, we see as people's masks start to come off, and you see truly how racist and despicable they are. It is incredibly high intensity. You really fear for the futures of these students, and you understand that the people at the school really have no concern for these people's lives, like whether they live or die. You know, if they die, actually it would be better. And so we kind of uncover the racist history of the school, and as these two team up in hopes of surviving and being able to piece together their future and still have a successful future. So if you like that book, I would suggest that you try out When No One Is Watching by Alyssa Cole. And this one we follow Sydney. Her family owns a house in Brooklyn. Yeah, Brooklyn. And it is like an older house, usually kind of where like one person lives on one story, and you know, they kind of split one house into multiple floors so people can live there. And a lot of these are being bought up by white people so that they can like remodel them and then sell them for exorbitant prices. So she, of course, is not wanting to sell hers, but she's starting to notice that a lot of people around her primarily Black neighborhood are disappearing. and that their houses and things like that are once again being bought by white people. So this book covers gentrification. It also deals with racism. It also deals a little bit towards the end, not too much, but with the experimentation of medical experimentation on Black people. That's of course something that has happened throughout history. So this book also very much has Get Out vibes. So both of these books have Get Out vibes. They definitely deal with racism, with white people trying to pretty much wipe out Black people, them trying to push them out of certain spaces, trying to take over. It deals also a little bit with like socioeconomic statuses as well, you know, what kind of resources that you have to defend yourself, and things like that. Both of these are thrillers. I know some people were saying that this is not a thriller, and maybe if you're a white person it might not be, but I would say most people would think someone coming in and disappearing your neighbors and completely taking over is a pretty horrifying concept. So I would consider it like a thriller or horror for sure. Both of these books were really well written and will definitely keep you entertained for the entirety of the story. They have pretty great pacing as well. This one is queer, and this one I believe, I'm trying to think if she's bisexual. She might be bisexual. I can't remember. Maybe I'm just imagining that. But this one for sure is queer. Devon is gay, and Chiamaka, I believe, is either lesbian or bisexual. So highly recommend both of these, especially if you're a big fan of Get Out. I've really enjoyed these books. I actually have a couple other books on my TBR that have these Get Out vibes, just because I enjoy them so much. So if you guys have any recommendations for books that have Get Out vibes, leave them down below. I would greatly appreciate it. All right, for the second to last grouping, the first one I'm going to talk about is Dial A For Aunties by Jessie Santanto. This follows Madeline, I believe is her name. If she's a young woman who is a photographer and works for her family's wedding business. She is very close with her mother and her aunts. They have a curse where all the men over time have left, the male cousins have left, the husbands have left. So she very much feels that she needs to stay with her family, even though sometimes she has dreams of more. At the beginning of this book, her mother sets her up on a blind date with someone that she found online. And, you know, our character reluctantly agrees to it just to get her mother off her back. And when he is driving her home, he turns down a dark road and she realizes that he is going to assault her. So she tases him and the car crashes and she ends up accidentally killing him. So she brings him home. She's like, hey mom, I killed someone. And so the mom calls all the aunties and they stuff him in a freezer and say we'll have to deal with this later because they have a big wedding going on the next day. So this book deals with them trying to cover up this murder while also catering this really large wedding that is going on. There's also a lot of drama that is going on at the wedding itself between the bride and the groom and the maid of honor, and things being stolen and things like that. Things are just crazy. We also have our main character, a old fling. Well, it wasn't really a fling. She was in a 2-year relationship. An old love is present, which is just adding even more drama to it because she never told her family about this. So it's a really great time. It's kind of like a cozy mystery because you don't really know what's going on with the drama of things being stolen at the wedding, but it's also kind of like a murder cover up, and it's got really great family dynamics and a lot of great humor. So if you like Dial A for Aunties, I would suggest that you read Arsenic and Adobo by Mia Manasala. So in this story, we follow Leela, who has recently moved back from Chicago, where I believe she was for a couple years. She had a bad breakup, and so she, kind of went home to lick her wounds, and also her family needed help at the family restaurant. So she is working there at the family restaurant when one of the patrons ends up dying, and she is accused of the murder. You can see that she's being set up throughout this. Pills are showing up where they weren't. The restaurant is being broken into. It's just clear that a lot of people are working against her. So she starts investigating because she wants to clear her name. She's like, I didn't murder this guy, so I'm going to figure out who did. And it looked like he was taking part in some kind of like shady business with the health inspector. So she's kind of going around to the different businesses and kind of questioning them to see if maybe one of them killed him as revenge for a bad health inspection that he was to blame for, or bad review that he was to blame for. We also have the strong family aspect because she works for her family restaurant. Once again, it is just the women. Just like with Dial A for Aunties, the men are no longer in the picture. So this book was a lot of fun. It was once again really funny, not quite as funny as Dial A for Aunties, but it was still a really enjoyable time. This one didn't have as strong of a romance either, but it is a series, and there was a couple potential love interests, so that could of course change later down the road. So these two, I would say what they have in common is that we are following two families of just women who have their own business that they are running. Both of these families are from minority groups. We have for Adobo, or Arsenic and Adobo, they're from the Philippines, and they're from Dial A for Aunties, they are Chinese, and the older women are immigrants. They grew up in their country, their home country, and then moved here and started a life here. We are dealing with a dead body in both of them. In one of them, we are trying to cover up the murder because we did kill them, even though it was accidentally. And this one, we did not kill them, but we are trying to figure out why we are being accused for it. We have those strong family dynamics, strong family support. In Arsenic and Adobo, we also have a lot of strong friendship support as well. With the family business, we have the women working for them because they want to support their, aunts and mothers, but at the same time, they very strongly kind of want to go out and do their own thing. They kind of want to branch out from that. So pretty much if you want some kind of fun, lighter books that also deal with mystery and murder, but strong family ties, and I think both of them, especially Arsenic and Adobo, mention food a lot, so that's really great. If you are interested in that, I would definitely suggest trying either one of these out. All right, and for the last grouping, I'm gonna go ahead and start with A Lot's Away. In A Lot's Away, we follow A Lot's Away. She is a young Indigenous woman who has the ability to see spirits. You may know her little ghost dog that follows her around. And one night she has a dream that one of her family members comes to see her before they pass over and inform her that he has been murdered. She informs her parents of this, and they go to I want to say it was a cousin. I'm going to say cousin if that's wrong. So they go to the cousin's house so that they can, of course, help his widow because they have a young child together, and of course attend the funeral. And while she's there, she works with her friend on kind of figuring out the mystery of what happened to her cousin in this primarily white town. And if you enjoyed Lots Away, I suggest that you try Hollow Fires. This is by Samira Ahmed. And I keep forgetting to give the author's names. Lots Away was written by Darcy Little Badger. So Hollow Fires, we follow our character, Sophia, who is a high school student and the editor of her high school newspaper. She is going to a private high school, but she is a scholarship student, and she is also a Muslim woman. We also follow the point of view of Jawad, who is a 14-year-old boy who was killed after he was kind of marked as a bomb boy because he brought a jetpack that he made out of like soda bottles to school, and his racist teacher thought he brought a bomb because he's from Israel, I believe he was from. And so she assumed, of course, because she's Islamophobic, that he was a terrorist and that brought a bomb. He was, of course, excused of all crimes because he did not bring a bomb to school, but it brought a lot of heat and hatred towards him. And unfortunately, at some point, someone does kill him. This happens at the beginning of the book. We only follow his point of view as a ghost who is kind of stuck in, you know, not being able to move on because his body has been left in the woods, and he has not gotten justice for his death. So he reaches out to our character and he kind of like whispers to her to please help him and have someone find his body so that his parents can, you know what happened to him, and of course that he can be buried and move on to the other life. And so she hears him. And there's other things going on at school where it's really clear that a racist is trying to make their mark on this school. There's quotes from Nisha, I believe his name was, who I guess was also quoted often by the Nazis. The newspaper is attacked. The mosque is attacked, and so is her parents' grocery store. I think it's a grocery store. So there's a lot of Islamic attacks that are going on, and so she goes out to face those, to figure out who is doing that, so that Jawad can get his peace, and she can, of course, feel safer in her community. So there's a couple reasons that I would suggest reading either one of them if you had read one of them. And the first one is obviously that both of these women are visited by the ghosts of people that have been killed. And these ghosts are asking that their killer is found and justice is served. Both of these people that have been killed are of a minority group that is often attacked and faces a lot of violence. And the women that they are reaching out to are young, and they're also part of that same minority group. Because they're both part of minority groups, the deaths of these people are often embedded in racism, and you can see as these women are going around trying to find answers that there's a lot of racism within the communities that they are trying to get answers from, and it's making it very difficult for them to get help from like the police and things like that. They're very much on their own, and it's very much about them trying to find justice for these people, for their family and friends are helping them, but it's all people within their communities, and it's showing these communities coming together when one of their own has been hurt, because unfortunately the majority community, the white community, is not assisting them. Both of these I once again read as audiobooks, and I thought they were really excellently done. So I suggest reading them in that aspect as well, especially Hollow Fires. This book was incredibly emotional, especially because we hear from the point of view of Jawad, who is a young 14-year-old boy who was brutally murdered, and it will probably leave you in tears. It definitely made me cry, you know, hearing him speak to our main character, asking for justice and talking about being lost and cold, and him talking to his parents. It's an incredibly emotional read. So either way, I highly suggest reading Hollow Fires. 5 stars. It was a stunning read for sure. Alright guys, so those are the 5 pairings of books where if you like this one, I suggest this one. Let me know down below if you have found a new book that you may be interested in today. And of course, let me know about the Get Out vibes, because I really enjoy those. They really get my blood pumping. So as always, thank you so much for watching my video, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!